Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 5 greatest Bach cellists. You know, I haven't done, I think, a repertoire video. I don't think I've done one, maybe. No, I don't think I've done one on the Bach cello suites. And the reason is because there are just so many wonderful performances of them. There are also quite a few horrible ones, as we've been discussing recently, but mostly they're pretty good because they are sort of the acme of cello music, and cellists don't do them unless they have something useful to say or something completely irrelevant to say, but plenty of technique to say it with. So one way or another. The bottom line is there are 5 great Bach cellists and probably a few more that you may want to mention, but these are, I think, the big 5. And the universe begins. These are people who've done all 6 Bach cello suites. I mean, that's the only criterion we have here. Some might have done the gamba sonatas, some might do other things too, but we're really talking about the great recordings of the cello suites. And I mean, any list begins with Pablo Casals, right? It just has to. There he is, good old Pablo Casals. Now, Casals' recording of the Bach cello suites is important for all kinds of reasons. First of all, he put the pieces back on the map. Before then, they were sort of, well, they weren't played at all, basically, or if they were regarded as exercises or things that cellists dabbled in, but Casals established them as the pinnacle of the solo cello repertoire. That's number one. Number two, Casals himself put the cello on the map. He was the first great cellist, period. I mean, there were others, and we have names and things like that, but you know, and some early recordings, but Casals was the guy who made the cello a solo instrument, which turned out to be a bit of a problem because there's really not that much great solo cello repertoire. I mean, solo cello or cello and orchestra or whatever. But because of Casals, there subsequently were written many, many, many fine cello concertos in the 20th century. Earlier, I mean, before then, you had Boccherini cello concertos, Haydn's 2 cello concertos. And remember, one of Haydn's 2 cello concertos was only rediscovered in the 1950s, which just tells you how little anyone cared about the cello. And you know, but since then, all kinds of people have written great cello concertos. And of course, the Dvorak, which is the greatest cello concerto in the repertoire. And Casals did all of this. He established the repertoire. He established the importance, the primacy of Bach's works for solo cello, and his recordings are legendary. Now, they were recorded, I believe it was 1930s. Wasn't it like the 1938, something like that, around there, in London. And the sonics were never fabulous, and he was sort of over the hill, you know, as a cellist at that time. I mean, he still played quite well, but he wasn't at his peak. His absolute peak was a few decades earlier. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all because he was always so musical and so intelligent and just effortlessly right in what he did as a cellist, also as a composer, also as a conductor. You know, he's kind of amazing that his performances are inevitable, whether you like them or not, whether they're the best or not, whether his intonation goes here and there. I mean, it just doesn't make any difference. So Pablo Casals. Next, Janos Starker. Now, Starker was a fabulous cellist. Let me put Mr. Casals away here. He recorded the Bach cello suites like 400 times, you know, for every label he ever recorded on. He sort of started out with a Bach set. He was a very nervous guy, a high-tension kind of guy, even fidgety sometimes, but his Bach doesn't really reflect that. I don't think they're fidgety performances, but they are high-tension performances. They have a certain excitement and what they call in the business a febrile intensity sometimes that's really very, very striking. And I think his Mercury Living Presence set particularly was really exceptional and was one of the great sort of early-ish stereo sets of Bach cello suites. They're quite marvelous. After Starker, well, you may ask, what about period instruments? Okay. That's actually not true. There's some very fine period instrument Bach players, including Einar Bilsma and some others. He's not on my list, but he may be on yours. Peter Wispelwey gets my period instrument nod. Wispelwey, I just think he's a fascinating artist. You know, he plays a modern cello and he plays period cello. And he's done the Bach suites a couple of times, and very differently, actually. Each time there are some, serious rethinkings of how they should go. And they're pretty equally valid, I think. He's really a wonderfully considerate soloist. I saw him play these pieces on a Baroque cello, or some of them, not all of them, but what a fine musician he is. He records for Channel Classics. He got great sonics, which is a big help. It just goes to show that you can make beautiful cello recordings that don't involve nothing but snorting and stomping and plonking with your fingers and whatnot, as we've heard, unfortunately, rather recently. And his performances of the Bach cello suites, both of them, are really exceptionally fine. So he's definitely on my list. And then Torlief Thedéeen. Torleif Thedéeen. Oh, he's so cool. He's another just amazing. Now, he's not as young as he used to be, but he was a young cellist at one point in his life, full of talent, recorded for the Bis label for the most part, where he also got superb engineering. He specialized in doing a lot of contemporary music, tons and tons of contemporary music, and that maybe gave him his sort of preternaturally accurate sense of intonation and firm sense of rhythm. You have to remember, these cello suites are basically dance suites. They've got to dance. They have to have a certain through pulse all the way through, no matter what you do. They've got to, feel like light and elevated and rhythmically buoyant, and even the slow parts, the sarabands or whatever. There's always got to be that feeling of lightness and flow, I think. And it's harder on a cello because it's sort of a heavy sound, bass-oriented instrument. And Thedeen really invests his performances, I think, with rhythm, with a beautiful and enlivening sense of rhythm. And so does my last cellist, Heinrich Schiff on EMI. Now, you all know that that's like my favorite set of these things. I think Schiff's just amazing. He's another cellist who always manages to capture the spirit of the dance in each movement. And in the preludes, too. The preludes, especially the arpeggio preludes, there's a tendency to take each motive and want to somehow do something with it. Just to try and pull them and twist them and shred them. Well, he has the expressivity, he has the inflection, but it isn't vulgar and it doesn't draw attention to itself. And it's not like, this sort of random applique. He has a sense of where the music is going. Remember, it's just a solo line of music. And that line is moving in a certain direction. And he never loses sight of what that direction is. I think that his set of the Bach cello suites is one of the great achievements of the modern gramophone. I really do. So Schiff is amazing. And those are my 5. I am very interested to hear your 5. But don't give me anyone who's like crappy. Please, I'm begging you. Make sure they're really good, because there are so many really good ones, and there's no reason to depart from the really good ones, and just to let some sort of wannabe ultra espressivo narcissist have their 10 seconds of fame. We don't want that. We want great Bach. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.